Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier, and thanks once more for stopping by. It's appreciated. If you're coming onto this podcast via YouTube, just to give you some structure behind it, normally I just talk about any events, some home thoughts, which tend to be my personal reflections, any big macro thoughts, political reflections, international markets, commodity prices, predominantly gold and oil is what I look at, Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, and then finally the podcast ends up with Kenya. So if you want to skip anything, just bear that sequence in mind. And as I said, I am grateful that you've taken time out to stop by. I appreciate it. I look forward to a co-hosted Mindspeak with Kepsa Kenya's Vimal Shah, where our guest is Christine Lagarde of the IMF. That's going to be on January 6th at the Intercontinental, 3:30 to 5 o'clock. And if you do want to come to that, because obviously we'll have some kind of restricted guest list, please drop us an email via rich.co.ke. It was a pleasure meeting John Abraham Godson, a member of the Polish Parliament yesterday at the Polish ambassadors. He's originally from Nigeria. The vodka was rather good as well. And I learnt there are 5,000 Africans in Poland, and I said to His Excellency that Poland should promote Richard Kapuczynski, because he spent a great deal of time in Africa and was a post-colonialist sort of fellow. I'll give you this quote. He's asked, "Is it possible to describe a war on terror?" Kapuczynski: "No, it's a web. Its structure is immensely difficult of scrutiny. We have to concede that there are many things in the world which it is impossible to delineate." That's from 2006. I used Gramsci in a piece I wrote over the weekend, and one of his most famous quotes is, "To tell the truth is revolutionary," and indeed it is. I'm still dealing with the fact that the swimming pool, which resides at 7,000 feet at Mount Kenya Safari Club, is now heated, because I used to see it as confirmation of my vitality swimming in that very cold pool. Once I nearly gasped, I nearly died, I think, because I was so short of breath, but it's now heated, and there you go. But given the number of children and folks who come, I suppose that's a good idea. Of course, the Safari Club was founded in 1959, became a mecca for the international jet set. It's regained its glory days under Nile, I must say. Beautiful green colours. I'll put up a photograph of the slopes around there. Came across this poem, Thomas Pynchon, Gravity's Rainbow. Extraordinary writer. Funnily enough, you'll find very little, a bit of a recluse type of character. "I dream that I have found us both again, with spring so many strangers' lives away, and we so free, out walking by the sea, with someone else's paper words to say. They took us at the gates of green return, too lost by then to stop and ask them why. Do children meet again? Does any trace remain along the superhighways of July?" And then another quote, "Behind the hieroglyphic streets there would either be a transcendent meaning or only the earth." And then I'll put up a photograph of a startlingly good salad niçoise I had at Fairmont, Mount Kenya. Really was good. Political reflections, and this was happening yesterday, but I'd already started my podcast, so I wasn't able to go back to it. But there's a curfew now in South Sudan after what's been characterized as an attempted coup. Nighttime curfew. Salva Kiir said the clashes were an attempted coup, claimed that the government is in full control of the security situation in Juba. Attackers fled, and your forces are pursuing them, he said. Blamed the fighting on a group of soldiers allied to the former Vice President Riek Machar and his group. Machar has been making, we knew this schism was coming to some degree. Riek Machar was part of a documentary I was watching about Wonderman Pictures, who actually got to meet with Joseph Kony, and the facilitator of that meeting, interestingly, was Riek Machar. And I wrote about this in a different context on the 30th of January 2012, when I was talking about the oil cutoff. And I said then, I have to surmise that the US is underwriting Salva's overdraft. What with all these demobilized soldiers roaming around Juba, it would be suicide to have them unpaid for any length of time, or antagonize them. I'll put up a photograph that Charles Opil tweeted of President Salva Kiir addressing the nation in full military attire following the attempted coup, and I'll put up another photograph of the River Nile as seen from Juba 1,477 days ago. So clearly it's a fluid situation. I think Salva, who's not necessarily seen as that decisive by many, probably not by Machar either, it seems to be making his move. We've got to keep an eye and see how it all plays out. Chinese police shot and killed 14 people during a riot near the old Silk Road city of Kashgar. 2 policemen were also killed. And I've been talking about this and saying that, lighting the tinderbox that is the periphery, and Xinjiang is part of that periphery. I said Xinjiang might well morph into China's Afghanistan. And I think that point remains valid. Since taking office, Shinzo Abe has visited all 10 members of the Association of Southeast Asians Nations, ASEAN, an unprecedented piece of outreach by a Japanese leader. Last week he hosted an ASEAN summit in Tokyo, marking 40 years of diplomatic ties. I found this comment interesting in that article, just how long he can and wants to keep a lid on the confrontation with Beijing as China inexorably ups the ante is East Asia's big unanswered question of 2014, and I think that's absolutely correct. Put up a photograph of Shinzo Abe bowing to Emperor Akihito and Empress Michiko during a national memorial service for the victims of the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. China, a newspaper, is saying the USS Cowpens was harassing the Chinese fleet. Global Times newspaper said the USS Cowpens had been getting too close to a Chinese naval drill involving the country's first aircraft carrier, the Liaoning, and its support ships. Cowpens came within 45 kilometers of the Chinese squadron, inside what is called its inner defense layer. The USS Cowpens was tailing after and harassing the Liaoning formation. Offensive actions, first toward the Liaoning formation on the day of the confrontation. So clearly we're continuing to see this collision take place between China and the US, the pivot to Asia, about which I wrote, and I said, the pivot to Asia is bearing its fangs, and that's another example of that. Coburn is saying all US, British and French miscalculations have produced in Syria is a rerun of Afghanistan in the 1980s, creating a situation the ruinous consequences of which have yet to appear. As jihadis in Syria realize that they are not going to win, they may well look for targets closer to home, and I think that point's a valid one as well. On that note, I'll put up a photograph of the sunset in Palmyra, and it reminds me of that poem, Nothing Remains. Then I like this quote about North Korea: the purge and subsequent quick execution of North Korea's number 2 leader proves once again the dangers associated with being next in line in an authoritarian society. Remember the old maxim about killing the chicken to scare the monkeys. Kim went straight for the monkey. Can you imagine how scared the chickens must be? I'll put up a photograph of people waving at an aircraft carrying the coffin of former South African President Nelson Mandela as it takes off from Waterkloof Air Base on the outskirts of Pretoria. And indeed, what a wonderful man. And I also like the statue that they unveiled in Pretoria, and I'll put up a photograph of that. Kiss and yell, Italian protester charged with sexual assault after kissing riot police officer. The photograph of Nina de Chiffre subsequently went viral on social media and was hailed as a symbol of peaceful protest in the country. However, COISP, a union representing Italian police officers, later revealed that they had lodged a complaint with Turin prosecutors. Franco Maccari, the Union General's secretary, told La Repubblica, "We've accused the protester of sexual violence and insulting a public official. If the policeman had kissed her, World War III would have broken out. Or what if he had patted her on the behind? She would have been outraged. So if she does that to a man on duty, should it be tolerated?" And he said, "A kiss is a positive thing, but in this context between these two people, it was just disrespect." And on that note, I'll put up a photograph of The Kiss by Constantine Brancusi, which is a wonderful sculpture. A painting of The Kiss by Gustav Klimt. And finally, the most famous kiss of all has to be Auguste Rodin's, and I'll put up a photograph of that as well. Currency markets, the euro 137.70. I have a stop at 133.80, as I've said previously. Dollar index 80.04. I don't see any chance of a taper at Christmas because of the markets being so thin at that time of year. Japanese yen 102.98. And remember that the dollar yen touched 103.92 on December the 13th, which was the strongest level since October 2008. Swissy 0.8868, pound 163.18 has hit a sort of, it's been flatlining around here for a while, but I think it eventually goes to 169.50. Aussie 0.8941, of course, Stevens has been doing a good job of wrestling that lower. He's talking of 0.8500. India rupee 6203, big inflation number yesterday. South Korean won 1051.74, Rial 232.78, Egyptian pound 688.72, and the South African rand 1029.63. The dollar's up 3.6% this year, the yen is down 14%, the euro up 8.7 has been the best performer. I'll put up a 3-month chart of the dollar index, and I see no taper at Christmas. Euro dollar, I'll put up a 3-month chart of that, and I remain long with a stop at 133.80. Interesting article by a lady called Katie Finneran, 5 biggest social media lessons of 2013. If you ever want to see any of the articles, just go to Ridge Wrap-Ups, by the way. Everything's linked there. Talking about how when AP's Twitter account was hacked, sending a fake tweet that there were 2 explosions in the White House, and Barack Obama's injured in a matter of seconds, the Dow dropped 150 points. Talking about Carl Icahn, talking up his position, saying he had a large position, the iPhone maker, pushed the shares up 5%, saying a single tweet can swing the pendulum of markets, proved that social media is every bit as valuable to day traders as it is to newsmakers. Talk about the increasing visualness of social media. And then Snapchat, a service that allows users to share photos and videos without the permanency of other social networks. Users control how long, 1 to 10 seconds, the recipients can see their snaps. And my daughters are incredibly keen on it, so I sort of heard about it from them. Gold ticked a little bit higher, 1242.20. I remain bearish. I think you sell it on any rebounds. Might get as high as 1260, and that might be the optimal spot to sell it at. Crude oil, I'll put up a 1-year chart, 97.63, fell sharply, recovered a little bit in the last few weeks, mostly driven by better economy news, but I think it's overcooked up here. Bloomberg have a good video about forget first class, how to fly like the 0.01%. The link is on Rich Wrap-Ups. I like this photograph of passengers on a ferry looking at buildings at dusk in Shanghai. Coming to Africa, The group has documented that M23 received continued support from Rwandan territory, the UN group of experts said in its final report to the Security Council's Congo Sanctions Committee, which was seen by Reuters on Monday. Credible information that sanctioned M23 leaders are moving freely in Uganda, and that M23 has continued to recruit in Rwanda. Javier Blas, who's a friend of mine and writes for the FT, has written a very interesting article about the expansion of sovereign funds in Africa, talking about the fact that oil producers Nigeria, Ghana, Angola have established sovereign funds, saying that recent big oil and gas discoveries in East and West Africa are likely to give new opportunities for more African sovereign wealth funds. Indeed, he's correct, and it's a very interesting article. This article caught my attention. East Africa's rising risks put investors on edge. And it's in full on the website, saying that East African countries have emerged as rising economic stars. The continent with Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique in the midst of an impressive growth spurt. But investors should also be wary of serious political risks emerging in the region. Risk analytics and research firm Maplecroft's Political Risk Atlas identifies East Africa as an emerging flashpoint of geopolitical risks, and I've been talking about that in the context of the pivot to Asia. The region has been home to a number of political risk incidents over the past year. Westgate, just one example. Kenya is among the East African countries at risk, according to Maplecroft, and is ranked 24th globally. Other East African countries also seem to have climbed up in the latest Maplecroft list compared to last year. Eritrea ranked 35th in 2014 compared to 43 in 2013, so that's improved. Tanzania 61st versus 77th. Mozambique 62nd versus 101. And this is interesting, has meant East Africa has eclipsed Central Africa as Sub-Saharan Africa's riskiest region. East Africa is already host to extreme risk from Somalia, Sudan, and South Sudan, which are all in the top 10 of the risk rating. More trouble is brewing in already fractured Sudan. But it's a very interesting article indeed. Some interesting points came out of it, which I'm going to share with you. Foreign investors are eyeing East Africa's resource riches that range from agriculture, produce to minerals and hydrocarbons, but there is a danger that governments are tightening their grip on these resources. In August, Kenya revoked mining licenses issued earlier in the year and raised royalties on a range of metals and mineral resources. These unexpected policy shifts signal that mining firms investing in Kenya face an elevated degree of regulatory uncertainty, noting that Kenya has risen from medium to high risk on the back of increased regulatory volatility. I think I spoke about that as well some time ago. One unnamed executive surveyed by Fraser said bluntly, Kenya is horribly unpredictable. Success in neighbouring countries has made them distrusting of investors, and they've been too quick to assume. They have the leverage to tax operators that have yet to find any resources. They also overstate success stories to back changes in the law. Government officials have little interest in effectively communicating with companies. Pretty harsh stuff. And I referred to this when I said, the key metric to watch is the credit spread. This was an article I was writing about Kenya's Eurobond. And I said that is a market-driven measure and it is dynamic. And bondholders take no prisoners. Once we issue our Eurobond, we have essentially given the international markets a vehicle to price Kenya's credit spread on a daily and a real-time basis. I'm exaggerating a little, but not much. The global markets will be poring over every single utterance on a real-time basis. And that spread which I spoke about will start moving around. And if the markets feel, for example, that we do not hold sacred the sanctity of contracts, our spread will start moving. South African oil share up 13.6% so far this year. It's come off about 6 percentage points since hitting an all-time high early in November. Dollar rand 10.29.99. Below that key 10.55 level. As long as it stays there, it looks all right. Egyptian pound firming a bit further, 688.76. Egyptian stock market up 24.83% in 2013, up about 8% this month alone, and at January 2011 highs. Nigerian oil shares surged 2.22% yesterday and is up 45.88% this year. The Ghana Stock Exchange up 79.47%, and probably Africa's best performing stock market this year. I like this photograph of a market in Mombani, Mozambique. The article, and it's linked on Rich Wrap-Ups, says that war is threatening to come at a moment when the country has experienced huge discoveries of coal, natural gas and petroleum that could change the lives of a large part of the population who live in extreme poverty. And that situation remains fluid. Renamo, Frelimo, and now the NBM. I wrote the following piece over the weekend: as a transit state, Kenya needs superb infrastructure. Once upon a time, 50 years old, had seemed to me an impossible age, something impossible to believe. As I've grown older, I'm less convinced that time is completely linear. Don DeLillo writes in Cosmopolis, "Everything is barely weeks, everything is days, we have minutes to live." We have entered a new age in Kenya. Our people are surfing the 21st century on their mobile phones. They have a mobile wallet in their phone. The expectations of this new generation are more immediate than any preceding generation. It's all about the now. And as I thought about our Jubilee and the circularity of our history, Presidents Jomo and Uhuru Kenyatta, I could not help feeling the ask for President Uhuru Kenyatta is actually infinitely more complex and challenging than it was for his father. Just as President Jomo Kenyatta presided over the period of independence, President Uhuru Kenyatta is presiding over the second birth of the Republic. Antonio Gramsci said, "The crisis consists precisely in the fact that the old is dying and the new cannot be born. In this interregnum, a great variety of morbid symptoms appear." And as I watched the Westgate saga unfold, I could not help feeling the President missed an opportunity to level with and connect with everyone. Just imagine if the President had said, "I saw what you saw. I, for one, recognize what we all saw was incontrovertible." In fact, the moment of political leveling is predicted and entirely predictable. We've embarked on a period of catch-up. Interestingly, the information century led the catch-up and via the mobile phone. The phone leveled the playing field, and with it has come the mobile wallet and the mobile internet. Our internet GDP ranks in the top percentile of Africa. This is the new to which Gramsci was referring. The ingredients are there for a very vibrant technology sector. We can see that Kenya is moving towards a more optimal energy position. I know of no economy that has managed to grow sustainably on diesel generators. If we are to create jobs in a thriving manufacturing center, then these industries need energy, which is competitively priced versus the world. Crude oil, geothermal, wind et al. Promise that not too far down the road this might well be the case. The President has doubled down on the railways. I was driving down the Thika Superhighway at 8 p.m. and every lane, 12 in all, was full, and I said to Nisha, the lesson is you cannot bet enough on growth. Kenya remains a transit state. It is the route to the sea and global markets for this region. Now, if you are going to seek to embed and entrench your transit advantage, you need first-class infrastructure. And therefore, I commend the sense of urgency around infrastructure. Execution remains everything. We are front-loading the balance sheet, and we need to make sure we load it right. I'll put up a photograph of the road to Thika taken 552 days ago. In its latest annual report, Habib Bank, which is Pakistan's biggest lender by market share, said it has set a target to increase its shareholding in DTB Kenya to 26% over 5 years, up from the 11.68% that it held at the beginning of the year. DTB's share price data is all on Rich Wrap-Ups. Market cap is 38.8 billion shillings, which is just under $500 million. Price earnings ratio 11.009. Accelerated first half profit after tax 38.43%. Interesting comment by the central bank governor. A reconstituted series of the current account deficit shows that the 12-month cumulative deficit improved from 10.45% in December 2012 to an estimated 7.5% by September 2013. I'll put up a link for an interview that I did with the central bank governor. It's where mankind was born. Now mankind is killing it, experts say. This is all about Lake Turkana and the Gilgel-Gibe 3 hydroelectric dam on the Omo River, and how it's going to completely transform dry out Turkana. And it's very interesting analysis being done there. Put up a photograph of Lake Turkana. Kenya shilling at 86.408 last. Nairobi all share up 40.765% in 2013, but has retreated 6.347% in a losing streak that started on the 28th of November. The NSE 20 up 18.84% this year. Quite a busy session yesterday. Most of the activity in EABL and Safaricom. Safaricom closed at 10. And EABL closed at 291, and they were the ones who really led the market correction, and therefore one's got to keep an eye on those to see when the turnaround happens. Once again, thank you for stopping by. It's appreciated.